Are you sure? It's like Tokohu.
How do you say that? Hi, I'm Deborah.
I'm Sam Burgundy.
And you're watching CCN.
Our top story today. A 9.0 magnitude earthquake has occurred off the west coast of Japan, causing a tsunami and the failure of a nuclear reactor. The earthquake was caused at the conservative plate boundary between the Pacific and North American plate. It was the fourth most powerful earthquake ever recorded.
Economists estimate that there has been a total of approximately £300 billion in damages, and although Japan is the most earthquake-prepared country in the world, the effects have been devastating.
It is reported that there have been at least 28,000 either dead or missing, with most of these deaths being caused by the tsunami.
There was a declaration of a state of nuclear emergency yesterday at 7:03 p.m, 5 hours after the initial tremor. In response, a 20-kilometre evacuation zone has been enforced, and seawater is being used for the emergency cooling of the reactors.
Thanks for that, Deborah. First, we're going to go live over to Sabin, who's going to give us a rundown on the responses to this awful event, so that we can see firsthand what is being done to help the survivors. Some viewers may find the following scenes disturbing.
Here we are at the aid center in Tohuku, Japan, where the UN are handing out emergency supplies. 163 countries have contributed to the aid efforts, and around 930,000 people are helping out. So far, Tokyo has designated $112 million for the next 5 years recovery plan. Hello, what's your name?
Mollie.
Hi Molly. So, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening right now behind you?
The UN gave me this box of supplies to me and my family. I've lost everything.
Okay, I'm really sorry for your loss. Back to you guys.
Thanks for that, Sabine. Next, we're going to head over to Charlotte, who has more news on the processes which caused this earthquake and the tsunami which followed it. More news from us as we get it.
This earthquake struck off the shore of Japan 4 miles east of Tohuku. An earthquake is the violent shaking of the ground due to the movement within the Earth's crust. The tectonic plates which make up the Earth's surface of the crust are continually moving. This is due to the convection currents within the mantle. As it is heated at the core and then rises towards the lithosphere and then cools and drops down, this then causes the plates to move with these currents. Due to the roughness of these plates, they can sometimes become stuck. When these plates stick, there is a build-up of energy as they continue to try and move. When this pressure becomes too great, the plates suddenly slip, releasing the built-up energy in the form of seismic waves, which travel throughout the Earth. In Japan, this earthquake was caused by the Pacific and North American plates converging. As they moved, the Pacific plate, which is the oceanic crust and therefore more dense, was forced to subduct underneath the North American plate and into the mantle. This release of energy occurred at the depth of 80 miles deep, which is considered as relatively shallow. This means that the effects of the earthquake were more damaging, causing mass destruction. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Charlotte. This just in. We have recently learned that the tsunami has managed to reach the settlement of Sendai, which is 80 kilometres away from the focal point of the earthquake. Grassland has been submerged and houses are being swept away like their toys. This is a harsh reminder of how devastating our planet can be.
We have also been informed that there have been several notable aftershocks to the initial earthquake, the largest a 7.9 on the moment magnitude scale. Up next, we have our reporter Tianan on the site in Japan.
It's clear to see that this earthquake has caused widespread damage to personal property all across the country. I'm here now with a survivor. I'm going to ask him a few questions. Hi, can you tell me where you were at the time of the earthquake?
Well, I was at work when I felt a violent tremor. Then the walls started moving back and forth and items were falling off the desks. The first quake was very long, everyone in the office was screaming. Then we had another long tremor about 30 minutes after that. We were stuck in our offices because the elevators were stopped. I was so scared. We all were.
Could you tell me if you're prepared for an event such as an earthquake?
Even though Japan is the most earthquake-prepared country in the world, We were simply overwhelmed. We received instructions on what to do during an earthquake since we were children. We are told to run into the middle of the playground or hide under desks, and earthquake drills are carried out routinely every month. Also, adults are advised about the location of the nearest evacuation centres. We even have a national broadcasting system that warns us about incoming tsunamis.
Okay, and how has this affected you personally?
Είμαι εντελώς συγκλονισμένος από αυτόν τον γεγονός. Έχω χαλαστεί. Όπως βλέπετε
I am utterly devastated. My house lies in ruins. I can't go to work anymore, as all transportation has been halted, and the building in which my office is located has been severely damaged. The worst part of it all is that I have no word from my relatives in Sendai. I fear the worst may have happened.
Okay, and would you say that there was enough time before the tsunami hit that was given to you by the early warning system?
The early warning system we have in Japan warns us beforehand about the danger of an approaching tsunami. The warning was issued 3 minutes after the earthquake occurred, which means that here in Tokyo we had 40 minutes of warning. But the residents of the hardest hit areas weren't as fortunate, as they likely only had 15 minutes of warning before the tsunami struck.
Okay, thank you very much, and back to you.
Our thanks to Tiananmen and our best wishes towards the survivors of all the families affected by this monstrosity.
We have a geographer, Dan, on the line, who is going to give us more information on mitigation and preparedness for this event. Over to you, Dan.
Japan is well known for being particularly susceptible to earthquakes, which is exactly why the country has taken so many measures to limit potential earthquake damage. Most of those measures were put into place after the Great Hanshin earthquake in 1995, after the government realised that a better prevention system was needed. Japan attaches great importance to scientific research and technological development on disaster prevention and mitigation. The Japan Meteorological Agency operates the world's first earthquake early warning system, which can warn the Japanese ahead of a quake. It can also detect seismic waves near the epicentre and send out early warnings through national television, radio networks, and even through mobile phones. Lifts and escalators are stopped, as well as trains, and the gas mains are shut off. On the day of the main quake, an alarm was sounded around 80 seconds before the beginning of the shaking in the Tokyo area. In Japan, there are various ways for the public to get access to disaster information. By mass media and cell phone services, for example. Japan also invests heavily in public disaster education, making one of the highest disaster risk-aware populations in the world. With the help of disaster preparedness training carried out in communities, the Japanese people have developed the skills and habits of self-relief. Emergency drills, where from a young age, children are taught when and how to take cover in case of an earthquake, are taking place regularly. People are also encouraged to keep emergency rations in their homes, especially canned food that can last longer. Japan is also implementing one of the most stringent construction standards in the world, with intensively reinforced residential buildings, bridges, and other infrastructures. It is worth noting that Japan is a leader in earthquake-proofing nuclear plants, although a severe nuclear crisis was induced by an earthquake-triggering tsunami. The Fukushima accident could, however, be prevented if the international standards for the nuclear plant were followed by the plant's owner, Tokyo Electric Power Company, aka TEPCO, and the Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency, aka NISA. The plant would have withstood the tsunami by upgrading it in accordance with the state-of-the-art safety approaches. Steps that could have prevented a major accident in the event that the plant was inundated by a massive tsunami are as follows. Protecting emergency power supplies and moving them to higher ground or replacing them in watertight bunkers. Establishing watertight connections between emergency power supplies and key safety systems. Enhancing the protection of seawater pumps. And constructing backup means to dissipate heat. They can also build dikes and seawalls to protect against a severe tsunami, and install emergency power equipment and cooling pumps. In the Japan nuclear industry, there has been a focus on seismic safety, to the exclusion of other possible risks. Bureaucratic and professional stovepiping made nuclear officials unwilling to take advice from experts outside of the field. Those nuclear professionals may also have failed to effectively utilise local knowledge, and perhaps most importantly, many believe that a severe accident was simply impossible.
for that update. That brings our report on the Great Tohuku earthquake to a close. From everyone here at CCN, I've been Molly.
And I've been Sam Burgundy. Stay classy, Coventry. Welcome to the 2011 Head of Department meeting on the Great Tohuku earthquake. Today with us we have myself, the Prime Minister, the CEO of the Tokyo Electric Power Company, Masaru Yoshida, the Head of Central Disaster Management, Toshimi Ogata, the Head Seismologist, Dr. Misaki Kinma, and the Head of Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency. This earthquake triggered the starkest crisis faced in the generation. We need to draw on this and study the lessons learned to prevent it from happening again.
I agree, over 500,000 people are still housed in emergency temporary shelters. We are working on this as it's causing the spread of disease such as cholera due to unsanitary conditions.
However, Mr. Prime Minister, I think we can all agree that a state of national emergency should have been declared when the earthquake occurred, as it was on a great scale, causing mass devastation.
Yes, our company can also admit that the lack of information and response had a massive impact on our ability to control the nuclear disaster.
Yes, I fully agree. Many more safety measures must be put in place if we are to prevent a disaster of this scale again. Many of the emergency systems we have in place failed due to the scale of the disaster.
Yeah, for example, the seawall around the reactors, which were already too close together, was 5 feet too short for the 30 feet tsunami wave, as well as the seawater pumps, which were destroyed by the wave itself.
But Mr. Yoshida cannot be completely at fault, as the size of this wave cannot be fully envisioned.
Clearly more resources need to be put into protecting nuclear power in Japan. After all, they provide 30% of the energy for Japan.
With plans to increase to 40%.
Okay, I think we can all conclude that more money must be invested into disaster management in Japan. We should increase it to around 29.6 billion, and perhaps set up an exclusion zone of up to 20 kilometres around the Fukushima power plant to protect our citizens. This concludes our annual meeting.
5 years ago, a magnitude 7.9 earthquake struck Japan, killing 15,000. We are back today to see how they have recovered from the devastating event. Still, 52 million tons of waste and rubble produced from the earthquake and its aftershocks remain in the cities. Although some buildings like the one behind have been heavily reconstructed, 10% of the people made homeless from the nuclear fallout are still living in temporary housing. It is clear that although Japan is a relatively rich country, this earthquake and the nuclear event have had a huge impact on its development.
It's clear to see that this disaster. It's clear to see that this disaster. It's clear to see that this disaster. Oh, no. It's clear to see that this disaster. No.
Right, you good?
I want to kill myself. Should we go again, or
I do never want to do it again.
everyone's dead? How do you turn this off?
Right.